Hi, everyone. Welcome. This is Steve Hess, Director of User Experience at OpenBOM, and I'd like to welcome you all to today's webinar, BOMs on Drawings, Still Relevant or Old School? So I see some new names on the list. I'd like to welcome you if this is your first time, and I'd like to welcome our friends back from the earlier webinars. This is webinar number 7 in our series of weekly webinars. Time is important, so we are going to get started. So. Okay. Just to take care of a little business first. This is a 30 minutes or less discussion about BOMs on drawings. Hang on, I just got a message here that says not seeing anything. Okay, good. This will be a time, I realize your time is important. This is not a deep dive into theory or BOMs or ERPs or anything else. It's also a marketing free zone. So we're going to try to stick to the topics. There are some definitions. We'll be sharing this deck with you, so you can spend a little more time on these. We'll be talking about part numbers and drawings and revisions and bills of material, and in a kind of in the daily, in the context of their daily definition, and not anything more formal than that. So I would like to get started. The topic, as I said, is today is BOMs on drawings, and this is the classic. This is sort of the classic behavior that we've been doing. I'm an engineer with many years of experience in design and engineering and manufacturing. BOMs on drawings is just what we did. And the topic or the discussion here today is, hey, is that sufficient, and is there possibly a better way? So I want to dive into the current state and then what some of the shortcomings are, and then present an alternative, maybe something to start thinking about, either fully implement or partial to get some advantages out of that. So this is what I think we've all become accustomed to. This is a BOM on the face of a drawing. It has, all the part information. In this case, this example, the parts all have the revision listed in the bill of material. We also have a revision on the assembly drawing. This is probably a PDF, might get circulated as paper around your shop, and we see here by the fact that the parts actually have revisions listed there, that in my example, my company is not following form, fit, and function, and that is a process that helps us understand when we need to revise or rev parts. So we dealt with that in our last webinar. There'll be a link at the end of this deck on how to go view that last 30-minute webinar on form, fit, and function. And we'll see that that the fact that we're including revisions in our BOM actually gives us a lot of risk going forward. So that's why I've highlighted both. We have revision in our BOM and revision in our assembly drawing. So what are the pros of putting the BOM on the drawing? Why have we always done this? Well, it's easy. I can tell you, just slamming that Excel spreadsheet on the face of the drawing, it got the data out to my manufacturing team. Again, it was probably printed. It was hard. I had an Excel file. It made it hard to share that with anyone, especially in the early days. But even now, how many emails did we send with the final version of the Excel file? So, and we also did some things. We, maybe we matched, revisions of BOMs with revisions of drawings, or maybe we didn't even care about BOM revisions. And if I was using a slightly more current CAD tool, maybe this CAD tool was giving me this BOM easily, and maybe it was easily putting it on the face of my drawing. So it was just easy to do. So, but let's take a look at what are the shortcomings. Where are the gotchas in this process? And the biggest issue here is the fact that if this BOM changes in some way, I have to roll the rev on my assembly. I cannot have two versions of this page one out floating around as Rev A. And, even simple part changes, typos. I can't tell you how many ECOs I've processed or written over the years just for a typo, and causing, if it was on the face of this drawing, I needed to roll the rev there. And then, of course, more substantive changes that might not affect actual, hard parts, but maybe we're adding labor or grease or some other, item that non-inventory part that doesn't really, doesn't show up in my CAD model, so my CAD tool doesn't master it. In other words, I probably don't model grease in my CAD files, but I probably want to include that in my BOM. That's kind of hard to do if I'm using the push button process from my CAD system. So anyway, here are a few others, but the big takeaway from this message, and the statement of the problem here is that rolling the rev on a drawing, especially on an assembly drawing, is costly. A couple of things happen. Number one, it's got to go through my internal process. Even if it's just a review of one person, or it goes through a change control board with 10 people, there is some time and some cost. I know in my own experience, a large semiconductor company, we spent upwards of $10,000 just to process an ECO, not the change, just to process the paperwork. And the second thing is, I was sending this out to a vendor. I know as a vendor, when I go from Rev A to Rev B of anything, my vendor is going to requote it. And we all know what happens there. When the vendor requotes a part, the price goes up. So, and a few of the other things are listed here. So here's some of the shortcomings of that drawing there with the BOM on it, and that kind of is going to serve as our problem statement. So, what are our alternatives to putting the BOM on the face of the drawing? Well, the first one is obvious. Don't put the BOM on the drawing. And that's the workflow that we're going to pursue here in the next 10 or 15 minutes. We are going to view an example where perhaps I've got some ballooning or other things that are important to my assembly drawing, so I don't want to lose that information. So we're going to replace it with something like a parts list, something that's not quite so volatile, that doesn't change quite so much, but still kind of gives us that connection between the balloon numbers and part IDs and the geometry. So we're going to look at that in just a second. We are going to create a controlled bill of material as a separate entity. Still going to be linked to CAD. If I get that button press, out of my CAD system that says, hey, build or rebuild or update my BOM, I'm still going to get that automation. As a matter of fact, it will probably even be more robust and include product structure and indented assemblies and things. So we're still going to have that. And we're going to start referring to our BOM now by its own part number in my example. And it may even be a dash number of the assembly drawing. I know in my experience, the dash 10, for example, was always the bill of material. And I know we've done a webinar in the past about whether or not to use significant or insignificant part numbers. But here's an example where a dash number might help you discern in some documentation the BOM from the assembly drawing. And we're going to take a look at that too. This new controlled BOM is going to be our bill of material. It's our master. It's where it's going to be our contract with our either with our manufacturing group internally or with our subcontractors. And many of you may be experienced with the contract being the assembly drawing. So we're gonna take a look at that. We're gonna think about how do we now share this new separate controlled BOM with our subcontractors or people internally. And maybe we're going to peek over the horizon a little bit and say, okay, man, now with this thing being separate, how can I take advantage of maybe some cloud sharing or kind of Google-like things? And we're going to maintain a revision of this BOM separate from the assembly drawing. We could force them to be the same if we wanted to, but it's no longer required. So we can manage a change stream in the assembly drawing different from the BOM. And you'll see in a moment, where that, that benefit will come in. But, the typo in the BOM being being really the best example. So well, let's take a peek at what am I talking about when I say let's replace this BOM in the face of the drawing with something else. And this is something that I'm proposing. If I'm not ballooning, if I'm not using a balloon feature on the cover sheet of my assembly drawing, then I might not need any of this. I may need a note that says, hey, bill of material for this item is mastered, and as a separate, as a separate part, or mastered separately. But here's an example where I don't want to give up this balloon. I capture this list quite easily out of my CAD system. In the examples that we're going to be going through here next, I'm using Onshape. Onshape has a nice integration with OpenBOM, and I wanted to highlight that a little bit. But you'll get this behavior with just about any any CAD system. So here we go. I replaced that BOM with a parts list, and I can balloon from. So what I've done here is I've reduced I've taken the risk out here of having revision and a lot of other information, material, and other things that could possibly change, but yet really have no impact on my assembly drawing. And I don't want them to cause a revision change in my assembly drawing. So I pulled that information off and replaced it with something that looks like this. And again, this is my example. The purpose here is to sort of get you thinking about this, how this might fit within your own organization. Okay, so this is what our BOM on the face of the drawing now has become. Again, in this example, in my example, I'll be using OpenBOM, which is a cloud-based bill of material management tool. Think about OpenBOM is to bills of material what SolidWorks or Fusion or Onshape are to CAD. OpenBOM is built specifically to create and manage bills of material, just like those CAD systems are designed to create and manage 3D CAD models. So the first thing we do is we're taking that sort of dumb BOM that we had on the face of the drawing that might be maybe it was in Excel, maybe it was at the table, from my CAD system, and we brought it into something that gives us a lot more power to manage. Here we're looking at our integration with OpenBOM, with Onshape. You can see in this integration we actually add an OpenBOM tab right into the Onshape document. So these are all the things that we had on our first example of our BOM. There's one additional column here. I'm demonstrating something here called the link, and in that link column, we actually within our bill of material put a link back to the actual CAD geometry, and that you may or may not find that interesting, and we can deal with that in a future webinar. But I just want to demonstrate that we don't just need to, we have opportunities here to put more than just dumb data in our BOM. So we're going to master the controlled BOM in a BOM management tool like OpenBOM. And of course, now the question is, how do we do that? Excuse me. So I'd like to jump into a live demo. It will take just a few minutes, and we'll go through making a couple of changes, and maybe just sharing out with a vendor, and then kind of viewing the history of some of those changes. Again, some things that you won't find if you're using a typical BOM on a drawing. So let me go ahead and get started. If there's anyone that's having any trouble, if the pace of the screen anything is not working for you, please just let me know in the chat. So, okay. Okay, I'm going to start by just kind of returning to the Onshape drawing where I placed the parts list. And then, of course, these balloons are they're live balloons as these item numbers over here change. All the balloon numbers are linked to that parts list. That's a nice feature. So let's take a look at the OpenBOM bill of material. Now, this was created using the OpenBOM add-in, which is available at the in the Onshape App Store. We create that using an ad application, OpenBOM, and I'm not going to dive into all the details here, but you have an opportunity to choose various properties and aspects and things about the particular bill of material you're creating. So I've already gone ahead and done that, and I created this bill of material that we saw earlier. This is a live link from this bill of material to that CAD geometry. So I'm confident that what I have in my design tab is represented in my bill of material. So the first thing we see when we start to use a more purpose-built tool for managing bills of material is a much tighter integration, much more confidence that the data that's in our list matches our design. If you've ever left a part off or didn't change a quantity because you had a manual process that said, hey, you know what, I added, you know, a second or third screw or changed the length of the screw and I forgot to go update it in my Excel BOM. This is the thing for you. All this geometry is captured straight, straight out of Onshape in this example. Okay, so what we're looking at here is the OpenBOM UI embedded into Onshape, and I'm gonna just do something simple. I'm going to maybe I made a few changes. I'm gonna snap a Rev A of this bill of material, and I'm going to send it out to a PDF. And I came in over here. Showed up on the wrong screen. Here we go. There we go. So here is a PDF of my bill of material. This again, this was a button push out of Onshape. This document can be printed out and included with the shop traveler that goes around my shop, or included with the paper drawing, or however I deliver that to my subcontractor. It can be emailed as well. So this is the Rev A of a bill of material that goes with the Rev A of my assembly drawing. For many of you, this may be a great place. This may be enough. This might give you a separate bill of material that you can make changes to. We're going to do that in just a second. Deliver it separately to your internal department or your subcontractor without having to update and roll the rev on that assembly drawing. There's a lot of benefit just by getting to this point right here, clicking export, getting the bill of material. Okay, so I hope that that's given you a little, that's kind of provoked some thought, but let's dive a little bit further now. What else is available to us, especially since we're using OpenBOM with this nice Onshape integration. So perhaps I'm in Onshape. I'm sharing my I'm sharing my design with my subcontractor. Well, we have within OpenBOM, we can do exactly that. You can see I've already shared this bill of material using the share dialog with one of my subcontractors, and I've granted them read-only permission. I can certainly control some of the permissions that they're available with those subcontractors, so I can get out of the paper business. Keep in mind, if I come along and I say, hey, you know what, I know that this really takes some grease is required here. So I come along and I've got 3 ounces of grease that I'm adding, and there's no revision to that. This change alone right there, if I was to make that on the face of my drawing, let's go back and take a look. If I was to add grease right here in the face of my drawing, I would have to roll the rev on this assembly drawing. And we all know that we roll the rev on these parts, all kinds of things happen that are costly and time consuming. So you were using OpenBOM. We've replaced the BOM on the face of our drawing with a kind of a dumb list. We moved over and started managing our BOM in OpenBOM. And now we have the opportunity to add grease to that bill of material and send it back to our vendor. We may be using the old tried and true PDF export that we just saw. We may be sharing with them, and in the case we've already shared with them, they'll have access to this. If I'm tracking my bill of material with a separate set of revisions, I can save this out as the red B. Send a notice to my vendor, and you can pick that up. So again, a quick change to a bill of material, not causing any impact to my drawing. So finally, the thing I'd like to point out here is something that you'll enjoy, especially with the cloud-based bill of material tool, is the ability to come back and let's take a look at what's been happening to this bill of material. You see this morning, I was doing a little work on it in preparation for this webinar, but in our case right here, I just added grease, created a new revision on this date. This change report can be sent out to an Excel, and you can keep track of this if you're monitoring changes with your contractor. So with that, let me return to my presentation. I'd like to recap a little bit, and then we'll take some questions. Okay, so here's some closing thoughts on BOMs on drawings. And number one, here's something I'd really like everyone to consider. If you're currently putting BOMs on the face of your drawing, and you're working on making that leap that I hear in number two, consider using form, fit, and function as the first step in this transformation. Form, fit, and function will remove the revision from the BOM on the face of your drawing, and you'll see a great reduction in the number of ECOs that are needed to manage that assembly drawing. Second, the thing I'd really like you to encourage to do is to make that leap to a managed bill of material. They're using OpenBOM, or there's others, but start managing that bill of material separately from that assembly drawing, so you can do all the things we just mentioned. You can make those easy typo changes, you can add items, you can share it, you can track it and control it individually from your assembly drawing. Item number two is the fat rabbit here. It's the big opportunity. So number three, we discussed this already discussed this, I think, in great detail. ECOs, reduction in ECOs saves money, period, end of story. Again, in my experience in the semicon business, it might cost us $10,000 to process an ECO. Yours might not be as high, but still real money, it's real time. And then finally, the last couple of these things, let's start turning those bills of material into full citizens in the design process. Revisions, sharing, history, again, where used, multi-level. These are all things that just are not available to you with a dumb spreadsheet on the face of your drawing. So all these other things kind of come for free once you've made the commitment to do, numbers 1 and 2 above, and kind of get out of this business of dumb data on the face of the drawing. And we've got other webinars that deal with more of these things, and we'll be dealing with more of them in future webinars as well. But those are kind of some things that come for free. And finally, I don't think there's anyone on the call, myself included, that wouldn't love to be out of the CAD BOM template mess, managing all of those templates for the various bills of material on the face of the drawing. So I know for me, distributing those. So again, use something like OpenBOM that kind of can get you out of that business. So here's a couple of references that I'd like you to consider. The top one, 7 seconds of the best advice you will ever find about BOMs on the face of drawings, and I'll leave it to you to take a look at those. Some others here, some other wikis and other references you'll find useful. And last there is our webinar playlist. So with that, I've thrown in a tab on a slide on form, fit, and function. I won't spend any time on it here, but if you're reviewing the deck, this will give you a little more information. And finally, I've got just want to invite you to ask some questions in the chat. And let me see. Looks like somebody is typing. Okay, so the question is, our assembly drawing is our contract with our supplier. Okay, we talked about that. How do I ensure the BOM is the separate BOM is synced with the drawing. Well, I think we discussed that a little bit. Using a purpose-built bill of material management tool like OpenBOM gives us that tight integration with our CAD system. OpenBOM has integrations with every CAD system that you can imagine, as well as several ECADs, high-end CAD systems like CATIA and others, as well as other ERP systems. So we've got that bridge from CAD to your other business processes pretty well defined. So with in the case of Onshape in particular, Onshape has an excellent OpenBOM add-in, and that'll keep that data in sync from the drawing to the BOM. So get out of the Excel business, I think, is my advice there. Second, in the example, the BOM, the revision on the BOM is different than the revision on the assembly. That's true. As a matter of fact, the part numbers are different. I think I mentioned I like to use like that -10 to be an example of of the BOM for a particular drawing. Let's see if I can show that quickly. You can see up here that I've got the same part number as my assembly drawing, but I'm within OpenBOM, I've given it a -10, and that denotes the bill of material. And I know there's a lot of comfort in having both having the revisions be the same. There's absolutely no requirement. As a matter of fact, it'll be quite liberating if you kind of can move on from trying to match the revisions of BOMs to the revisions of assembly drawings. And you may have to educate your subcontractors and your internal departments a little bit in how that works, but OpenBOM captures all that information in the bill of material. When you share it either internally or with your subcontractor, that'll all be available to them. So yes, I agree. Revisions cost money. Yeah. Someone's saying that they spend about $5,000. So yeah, that's real money. So anyway, that's all the time we have for today. I do want to be respectful of everyone's time, and thank you all again for joining. Look for us to share out the link to this on YouTube as well as the slide deck. So I hope everyone has a wonderful day, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye-bye.